Adam Carolla is here, and we're calling it like it is. From collapsing blue cities to Gavin Newsom's sociopathic shine to the full-blown assault on masculinity that's gutting male strength and purpose, we are going there today. Let's dig in.
Keeping it real with Jillian Michaels.
Keeping it real.
You know, I was about to ask you why you haven't moved from California, since I think you are probably the top critic of the governor and so on and so forth. And now I just discovered that you are, in fact, moving.
Yes.
What was the tipping point, or what took you so long? Which question should I start with?
I had younger kids and I was raising them here in like a good, all right, I'll tell you a lot of it.
I'm ready.
Okay. I lived in La Cañada, California, where most people kind of go, where's La Cañada? I've never even heard of that, but it's a beautiful little pocket of Southern California that is how things could be if we would run the state sort of normally. Like, they're pockets. So right. I just got back from Coronado outside of San Diego, and Coronado's amazing. It's an island. It's beautifully done. And you go, yeah, not too shabby, and there's places like San Luis Obispo. I did a theater over there a couple weeks ago, and it's like, it's beautiful. So if you live,
it's the most beautiful state. Yeah, I give it that.
Right. But if you're waking up and there's homeless people on your lawn and guys dealing meth out of a Winnebago and stuff like that, I get it. You're on the clock. But if you have kids who are actually going to a good school and they're not going to graduate for a few years, and you live in a pretty nice neighborhood, you have to leave eventually, but you're not on the clock.
I understand. What do you think will become of California? Or should we just start with blue cities in general? What has gone wrong? And this can't just be a Gavin Newsom problem. And I want to get to him, and you've called him a sociopath and a policy disaster, and you know that I completely agree with you. But it doesn't just seem to be isolated within Los Angeles. It's a, quote, blue city issue.
Yes.
And everybody's moving out of blue cities. And right. I believe you're going to Nevada. Yeah. Some people are going to Texas. Some people are going to Tennessee. Some people are going to Florida. And there's obviously a theme of income tax, but there's more to it. They're red cities. What do you think is going on there? It's not getting better. People are still leaving.
Yeah. Well, so the blue cities suffer from a problem, which is they don't really understand human capacity and what motivates humans or how humans work. And they have some sort of ideal thing that doesn't comport with reality and how people actually behave and react to stimulus and pressures and things like that. And when Gavin Newsom was on my podcast many years ago, I brought up the homeless situation. And this is a decade ago plus. So you have to picture whatever.
What
California
role did he have
was.
then? Was mayor of San Francisco or something?
He was lieutenant governor. He just got done being mayor of San Francisco, and I think he was lieutenant governor on his way to be governor. And so I brought up homelessness, and I said, and people can listen to it on the internet, and we're having a nice conversation. I said, look, it's a bunch of junkies and then a bunch of people with serious mental issues and or both that are living on the street. And then he said verbatim, but what about the real face of homelessness? And I said, that is the real face of homelessness. And he said, no, the real picture of homelessness is a mother who's been divorced, who has a couple of kids and a full-time minimum wage job, who gets pushed to the streets. And I said, that's a postage stamp. That's not a picture.
Absolutely.
I said, what you're saying is a postage stamp, and what I'm saying is the AIDS quilt. And he was like, this is the real face of homelessness. So fast forward, a decade, and they've spent $24 billion, and they came out with a thing the other day that said the leading contributor to homelessness is income inequality, lack of housing, and racial injustice or whatever. So how would one solve a problem if someone was constantly misdiagnosing the problem? I mean, I just got back from San Diego, and they have a big homeless problem in San Diego. And my girlfriend and I were driving around, doing shows there, and it was back to the hotel and out up to Del Mar and other places and driving around. And there's homeless people. They look like zombies. They're flopped down in the street.
Yeah.
And people with cardboard boxes over their heads and stuff, the pants down and stuff. And I said to my girlfriend, have you spotted any mothers of two who were wearing Taco Bell uniforms with their children?
Right.
It's just dudes flopped out in their own filth. That's all it is. And so it's like, they won't even acknowledge what the problem is, but bigger picture.
They're giving out drug kits, though, with our tax dollars. So, so to a certain extent, they surely know that the majority are addicted to drugs because they're giving out,
blue
needles.
The progressive themes are basically, I always tell everyone, everything is dogs at an airport. You go, look, some people have a lot of anxiety about flying, or they have medical issues and they need to travel with their dogs. Now, I would say that's a bad idea. Nobody needs a dog to travel, but they need a dog to travel. So then somebody goes, why don't we say it's okay to bring your dog, but you got to have a note from your doctor and it's got to be legitimate. And then 10 minutes later, there's dog shit all over the airport because people are going to do what they're going to do. Do you know what I'm saying? And now there's commonly dogs
analogy.
On flights. There's dogs all over the airport.
True.
I was in LAX a couple of years ago, and there was dog crap all over the main entryway. And I'm like, this is how it's going to go if you don't understand human beings, which they don't. You know what I mean? Everything is about, Tim Walz, who's a complete idiot. He said, but you have to really picture this. He gave this speech a week ago where he had to kind of walk back the whole Elon Musk stock tank thing.
Yes,
I'm laughing. I'm
doesn't
happy.
Elon Musk own like 8%, and the rest of Tesla owners essentially
right?
401k?
And his city is invested in it for 401k, whatever. So he had to walk it back, right?
Mind-boggling.
He had to walk it back, but that wasn't the interesting part about the speech. The interesting part is he just kind of riffed at the end. He goes, I don't know, if I'm the richest man in the world, well, hell, man, I'd be out in the street handing money out, helping people out. And I'm like, oh, you think like a 9-year-old. Like you think, first off, what do you mean helping people out? Give them like a handful of, you stand there with a sack of money and give people, like you think that's what rich guys, he creates jobs. Elon Musk creates jobs and builds factories and creates a product that people use, and then the people he employs are gainfully employed. That's what he does.
Teach a man to catch a fish, and he'll eat for the rest of his life. Give him a fish he eats for the night.
That speech is great. It's like, hell, man, I'd be helping people out, handing them money. Like, handing who? Hey, here's $80. Buy some Doritos. Like, okay.
I don't mean to laugh.
But he thinks that way.
He does.
And it's grandiose.
Yeah.
Like, hey, man, if I was a rich guy,
this is what I would
I'd
do.
be helping people.
I'd be this great person.
Yes. Hey, Dick, he's helping people by building factories and giving them high-paying jobs. So their version of like, that's, hey, rich guy, pay a little more in taxes so other people could have some stuff.
This is the guy
That's how they think, and it can't work. It never works.
Isn't he the one that let his city burn for 3 days after George Floyd?
Yes.
And the guy that had, I think, cops run around and shoot people with beanbags who were on their porch during COVID.
Yes.
And the guy that started like a rat you out hotline amongst neighbors, I think.
I know. I love it. I love it.
Tampon Tim.
When Tampon Tim. I love it.
Tampon Tim.
I love it when those guys then give a speech where like, hey.
Yep.
Just mind your own business. Leave us the hell alone. It's like, okay. I'll tell that. What happened to folks during COVID? You were trying to lock down when you shut the beaches out here like Gavin
But you
Newsom,
are allowed to riot, though, for 3 days and burn down your
Right.
city, because if you're rioting for a cause that he deems just, you don't catch COVID under those circumstances, which
Yeah.
was one of the reasons I absolutely hated Gavin Newsom and it sent me fleeing from California in 21.
Yeah.
Is because it's like, wait, hold on. You're telling people they can't see their dying grandmother. They can't spend holidays with their family for over 2 hours because at 2 hours and 1 minute, I guess, you also catch COVID.
Yeah.
If you sing, you catch COVID. I don't know if you remember that. If you're in a restaurant, do you remember this one, Adam, in Los Angeles, and you're standing up, you're in the COVID layer, and you must
Yeah.
wear a mask. But when you sit down, you're out of the COVID layer, you take off your mask, and people still vote for this guy.
Yeah.
What am I missing? What do you think people still see in this guy? What are they seeing that you and I don't see? Because you see a sociopath.
Yes, he is a sociopath. I've interviewed him. There's something wrong with him.
Elaborate on that first, please. What did you see?
I said to him stuff. I've said
outside
to
of
him,
incompetence and corruption.
I said to him, like, well, look, what about traffic? Could somebody talk about traffic? I've lived in this town my whole life. It's number one worst traffic in the world. And it's horrible and it impacts everybody.
Right.
And it's bad for the environment. And it's also bad for the poor people you love because they can't afford to live. You know, if they work at the VA in Westwood, they got to live in Simi Valley because no one can afford a home. You want to get a condo in Westwood, it's $1.7 million. They can't have that. They need a home they can afford. So all these people have to commute in from crazy distances. I mean, living way out of town to afford a house in Newhall, Saugus area, and they got an hour and a half in and an hour and 45 back every day. It costs a lot, and gas is expensive, and it really affects these people. And he goes, you know what, Adam? I saw a sign I kind of liked. It said, "You're not in traffic, you are traffic." And then he laughed and moved on to the next subject. And I'm like, I don't know. Does he not know what I'm saying or asking, or does he want us in traffic? He's a sociopath. I mean, I've heard him. Somebody said to him, look, people are leaving California. And he went, well, yeah, I knew a couple, and they moved to Utah, and they're well-to-do, and their kids in a good school, and they're doing pretty well right now. But I imagine one day they'll be back. And it's like, no, they're not coming back. And I don't know why that's your answer. Your answer should be, we're going to clean it up and fix it up so people don't flee. So it is good. There's something wrong with Gavin Newsom. There just is. I've been in the room with a lot of people. I study people.
More so than
I've sat in
other
a room.
corrupt politicians.
Well, other guys are sleazy or slimy or something else. You know what I mean? Like Barack Obama's a race hustler who's trying to make money, but he's not Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom, something's wrong with him.
I don't want to go down this rabbit hole personally. In other words, like, I don't want to fall into this belief system of wondering conspiracy theories about the fires here. But just correct me if I'm wrong. You're looking at the fact that this happens a couple times a year now. I mean, I owned 2 homes in California. One burned in 2018, and the one I sold in 21 just burned down. So the 2 houses I owned here burned down in a matter of 5 years. And northern Malibu burned down a few months before the Palisades fire, and only stopped there because of the fire break from the Franklin fire. And you do nothing? Zero. There's no forestry management. You cut the the fire chief's budget by like how much was that? I can't even remember. Some crazy number, millions and millions of dollars. This can't just be incompetence.
I don't know in the sense.
Like what? How? How do you not do anything? And now you've got a podcast.
Well,
like what?
I've really been kind of thinking about this a lot, and I realized LA especially, and that the ladies and some of the fellows in the city council, they're kind of process people, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot, which is I come from a family, my mom especially, sort of was a process person, but she never got anything done, but she kind of talked about it a lot, you know, and then I realized I'm not a process person at all. which I'm not being grandiose, but I'm mechanical. And mechanical people want to get stuff done like all the time. Like when you saw Karen Bass sitting at a press conference with Donald Trump, he's a commercial builder. Commercial builders are like, let's go. And then somebody goes, the window, the glass facade on the skyscrapers still on a container ship in the Panama Canal. And they're like, what? We're supposed to be here a week ago. And because you know what it all is? It's all like, we got to get the foundation formed and poured before we can start framing. Well, the framers are here. Yeah, but we need the foundation. And then once the framers guy, we can get the roofer and the siding guys in and the drywall guys. Like everything's like, let's go. So he's there going, people need to clear their property and start tonight. And she's like, safety, slow it down, safety. But here's what I started to really realize. The process people, they don't know how to do anything. Karen Bass doesn't know how to do anything. She's never done anything.
I think you're actually being kind, because incompetence is like, well, you're just incompetent. Do you really think that you could be that incompetent?
Spring is here, and who's got the itch to travel? I mean, summer is just around the corner. And for me personally, I go to Quince for all my luxury vacay needs, but I get them at a fraction of the price. I mean, we're talking about lounge sets and washable silks, all kinds of awesome stuff. I got a lightweight carry-on that makes traveling feel like a breeze. Hoisting that sucker up onto that top shelf of the plane, no problemo these days, even though I'm only 5'2". Thanks to Quince, it actually makes everything easier and more affordable because they cut out the middleman and they pass the savings on to us. And not only that, everything is ethical and sustainable. They work with top fabrics only, and that's just one of the reasons that I love this company. So for your next trip, treat yourself to the luxe upgrades that you deserve from Quince. Go to quince.com/Jillian for 365-day returns, plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/Jillian to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Jillian.
Did you know that the skin on your neck is thinner, more delicate, and less oily than facial skin? Which basically means that it requires specialized care. GoPure's proprietary firming complex is designed to visibly firm and smooth the skin on your neck and chest, thank you so much, in as little as 4 to 8 weeks. And in a consumer study, 100% of the users said that their skin looked more supple, and 97% noticed a firmer appearance. It's dermatologist recommended, it's cruelty-free, paraben-free, and sulfate-free, with over 1 million jars sold. This beauty secret is no longer a secret, and personally, it's been a game changer for me. I use it morning and night religiously. It's my go-to. Tighten, lift, and restore elasticity in your neck, because your skincare routine should not stop at your jawline. So for a limited time, our listeners get 25% off GoPure with the code Jillian25 at checkout. So just head to gopurebeauty.com and use the code Jillian25 and you're all set. And after you buy, do us a favor. When they ask what you heard about GoPure, tell them it was from my show. You knew we were going to have 100-mile-an-hour winds. We knew this was going to happen.
I don't know. I see a lot of stuff through the avatar of my mom, who was very processed, but then also they talk like they go, my mom and my grandmother were both sort of hippies from LA, and they would go like, the indigenous people that people don't have and whatever. But they would never do anything for those people. And at a certain point, it was kind of weird because when my grandmother was older, she got she had a woman caring for her, like a Filipino woman, right? Uh-huh. And I don't know, her name was Delia or something. And when I told my grandmother at some point that I'd basically bought a mansion on a hill, she just looked at me and she went, "Delia doesn't have a living room table," which is first off, sort of real hippie-esque, like, what are you doing in your big house when she barely has enough to get by? But then, like a week later, my grandmother's saying, Delia wants a raise, but I don't think so, And I'm like, hey, bitch, you're in charge of Delia and her coffee table. If she can't afford a table, that's because you're not paying her. And they never paid anyone anything and did anything, but they would tell me constantly about the people who didn't have enough and stuff like that, but they would never do anything for anybody.
The virtue signals.
Right. And I realized, and there were also process people. And that's why they only want to talk about good vibes and kids and the indigenous folks and the LGBT community and all that kind of stuff. Nothing ever comes out the other end. They never do anything. Nothing ever works. It's all just vibes. And frankly, I think it's incompetence, or I'd like to think it was incompetence. I don't think Karen Bass knows how to do anything. And I don't think any of these city council people know how to do stuff. If you had someone in there who was a roofing contractor for 30 years, you would find people who knew how to do stuff. They don't do stuff. They're processed. They talk about stuff.
I've been loving your vlog where you update people and you go up and down Pacific Coast Highway. In the most recent incarnation of the vlog, what did you find on Pacific Coast Highway? Like, you saw some independent guys cleaning up some stuff, I think. What did you find? Because when I lost my house, it took me a year to get a permit just to clean up the catastrophe, just to do that.
The one that's most recent that is up is me touring with the Army Corps of Engineers. And the Army Corps of Engineers are pretty competent, and their marching orders were to get going and not, I think even the Basses and the city councils and the Gavin Newsoms knew that this would turn into, they would never be voted in ever again if they didn't streamline the at least cleanup process. There's a difference between getting your land cleaned up and then pulling a permit to build a new home, which I imagine is going to be difficult. The Army Corps of Engineers are competent, trained men and women who do these kinds of jobs. They do not have their own they have a corps of engineers, but everything is contracted out through the private sector. So all the guys driving the trucks and all the guys working the excavators and all the backhoes and all that stuff is all private sector. They coordinate those people. They took Temescal Canyon and blocked it off and turned it to a giant recycling steel and concrete. Like, it is a real big scale thing.
Okay, that's encouraging.
They're moving.
All right.
There's a difference between clearing a property and building a property. And I think it's a little bit of a black eye to the city council, the mayor, and the governor to have charred remains everywhere. So it kind of behooves them to get that stuff out of there. I don't know if it behooves them to expedite the building process. And I talked to privateers that were clearing stuff, and I talked to other guys that were subbed out by the Army Corps of Engineers. And it's interesting, and they're moving at a decent clip.
Okay. That's encouraging. I'm hopeful. I mean, since Gavin Newsom has his new podcast, he seemed pretty focused on that, but it's good to know that this is happening. Are you buying any of his move to be more moderate, but saying that he does see that it could be potentially unfair to have biological males competing against biological females in sports?
Yeah.
But he doesn't agree with public schools informing parents that their kids might be socially transitioning, which to me seems barbaric and outrageous, considering there are laws in place. If a child is unsafe in their home, for you to report those parents. It's not about keeping the kids safe. That's a lie. What do you think about what this guy is trying to manipulate publicly with regard to his social positions?
It's kind of a funny thing. It's like Democrats, I mean, Kamala Harris did it too. It's like, we need to convince you we're sane, so we'll take some sort of sane stances on things. Like, I mean, here's what happens. They go, we're not going to do anything about the border. And then they go, it turns out most of America wants something done on board. And then they go, all right, I'll be tough. I'll tough on board. Like Kamala Harris was against fracking. Mm-hmm. And the thing I always laugh about is, it's like Joe Biden was against gay marriage at the young, tender age of 67 and a half, 71.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. Never going to happen. I remember, of course.
But the thing that's funny is like, okay, it's one thing if you're in college and you're caught up and you're young and your frontal cortex is not fully developed. It's another thing when you take a stand against fracking at 55 and then at 59, you're all for fracking.
Right.
Well, what happened? Well, somebody told you people like fracking and they like energy independence, and now you're for it. Okay, so here's my metaphor. Kamala Harris just did it with the election. It didn't really work. And then Gavin Newsom is kind of pretending to be sane on these subjects. And then we go, well, does he really think that? Because there's a lot of footage of him saying the opposite of that for a long time. But all I'm saying is this. The Republicans never were against fracking, and they always were for the border, and they were for lower taxes. And now you guys are talking about it like you're into it, but I don't totally trust you. But it's like me saying, look, I got to hire a babysitter. And one guy is just a good, hardworking family man, and he's a Christian, and he's been babysitting for 50 years, and he's a good dude. And the other dude used to be a pedophile, but now he says he's done. And I'm like, well, why don't we just go with the guy who was never a pedophile? And you're like, well, hold on. Hear out the guy who was a pedophile. He was a pedophile 4 years ago. He's 57. But he says he's done with that. I'm like, yeah, well, maybe he is. But this guy's never been a pedophile. So why don't we just go with the guy who never did it?
Got it.
Well, this guy says that guy's a racist.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, and he's homophobic, and he doesn't care about the indigenous people, and he hates the environment. And you're like, oh, so this guy who's going to watch my kids, who's not a pedophile, but he could be homophobic, and he could be racist, and he could hate the environment. And then this guy used to be a pedophile, but he says he's not anymore, but he loves black people. Huh.
Okay.
Now we got to make a choice here.
Well, okay, so this brings me to, actually I had a punch list. I'm going to jump ahead. I had a little fun game I wanted to play with you here, which I'm jumping ahead. So this is my punch list on politicians. Who's the most dangerous politician in America?
This podcast is sponsored by Active Skin Repair, a skin health company helping people heal with natural, non-toxic, medical-grade ingredients. Active Skin Repair utilizes a molecule called hypochlorous acid. And when you apply the skin molecule, it works by mimicking the natural immune response to cleanse, soothe irritation, reduce inflammation, and support healing. Active Skin Repair can be used to treat a wide range of skin issues, including cuts, scrapes, burns, sunburns, diaper rashes, and other types of skin damage. This is invaluable for moms, maybe you've noticed. It is also safe and non-toxic, making it suitable for use on all skin types, all parts of the body, and it even helps with rosacea, eczema, and acne-prone skin. With over 500,000 happy customers, thousands of 5-star reviews, and ingredients so safe and so clean, they can be used by the youngest member of the family up to the oldest. So now you have one simple solution for all of your family's skin health needs. Just visit ActiveSkinRepair.com to learn more about Active Skin Repair and to get 20% off your order. Just use the code Jillian.
Do you want to give someone a gift that really matters? Give one that won't just last a year, it'll last a lifetime, and that's the gift of learning with Masterclass. I don't need to tell you guys this. Masterclass is the only streaming platform where you can learn and grow with over 200 plus of the world's best. For just $10 a month, billed annually, a membership with Masterclass gets you unlimited access to every single instructor. It's an amazing deal, and you can access Masterclass on your phone, computer, smart TV, or even in audio mode. And the classes really make a difference. 88% of members feel that Masterclass has made a positive impact on their lives. Guess what? I gave the gift to my wife selfishly because I wanted her to take some of the cooking classes. And I had one of the best steaks I've ever had in my entire life just last night. So guess what? New membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Don't wait another moment to start your learning, or give the gift of learning with Masterclass. And our listeners always get great discounts on Masterclass. You get 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/keepingitreal. See Masterclass's latest deal, at least 50% off, at masterclass.com/keepingitreal. That's masterclass.com/keepingitreal.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's George Soros or something. But
I like the direction you took this.
But as long as you asked, I would say Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders attracts young people. And, you know,
just at Coachella.
Yeah, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, you know what I mean? They don't, even Obama's, they're on the way out. Like, they don't attract the youngins. Bernie Sanders is full of horrible ideas that young people like. And so, if you're a big Biden fan and you're 79 years old, I don't know how many elections you're going to vote in from here on out. But if you're at Coachella and you're 19 and a half and you're going nuts for Uncle Bernie, then that makes the Bernie Sanders crowd. I mean, AOC, all the basically socialist communists with the 10-cent heads are dangerous, but they are probably, I would say off the top of my head, Bernie is, just because young people love him.
It's funny. I was just talking to Bill O'Reilly about tariffs, and Bernie was the top concern. I didn't even ask the question. He just randomly brought up how dangerous Bernie is out of the blue because of his bad ideas.
Yeah.
And it says quite a bit. Why do you think kids, jumping off my punch list, why do you think kids are so attracted to that message?
Well,
do you think it's because we've disempowered them? Or because the world it's harder to make a living because houses cost more because of inflation? I mean, I hear that a lot.
There's a couple things. Bernie is authentic. He's retarded, but he's authentically retarded, but he believes it. You know what I mean? And I think they can sniff it out. The kids can sniff it out. I don't think they were buying Kamala. Like, they weren't buying it, and they're not going to buy Gavin Newsom. And so what they want is authenticity. You know what I mean? And Trump is authentic in a very different way, but they're authentic. That's who they are, right? So I think they like the authenticity. I think the kids just in general there's a little nihilism, which is we're never going to look. They've been these kids at I don't know, where the hell were they? Bonnaroo? Where are the kids? Where's Bernie? You just said
Coachella.
Coachella.
Yep.
Coachella. These kids who's like, let's just say your average age is, 23 in 2 months. You've been fed a steady diet of climate change and end of the world. I mean, an inconvenient truth is like, I don't know, 08 or 07 or whenever, we're coming up on, those kids were 5 when that movie came out, and it's been a steady diet of that their whole life. So why do they want to have kids, or why have a mortgage? You know what I mean? I mean, if the whole shit house is going to burn down in the next 12 years, what are you planning for?
Right.
And so I think there's a lot of that. A lot of it is just a general rebellion against whatever is, so it's just a pushback against whatever conventionality is. And I think they're kind of going, who is the opposite of like a founding father or Ronald Reagan or Trump, and that is Bernie Sanders, so thus we're for Bernie Sanders. So I think that explains his phenomenon a little bit.
That makes a lot of sense. I liken the Kamalas, though, and part of their lack of popularity to feeling fundamentally, I hate to say this, I don't know how else to say it, but kind of anti-male. I mean, there's definitely been a movement to emasculate men. And I'm starting to see men reclaim that and fight back. And it's really resonating. At least I have a 13-year-old boy. My son loves you. He likes Charlie Kirk. He loves Joe Rogan. I'm like, you're political? You're 13 years old. I wasn't political at 13, but it's because he's like, is this what this is what men are like. I want to be like that. Do you think that part of the reason Democrats lost or Kamala lost, my son was looking for a strong man, not because he doesn't like women. He's got 4 moms, for God's sake. But do you see that? Or do you think that I'm, I don't know, leaning too much into this kind of pop culture, cancel culture, wokeism?
Well, we did wage a certain battle against, masculinity, which has been around for a while. It's not, some of this stuff's been around for a little while, and its roots weren't too bad. It was sort of like, well, I think a lot of it is evolutionary.
Okay.
In that,
explain.
Well, we needed guys to have toxic male masculinity at different points in our society because they physically had to kill other folks.
But that's I never experienced toxic male masculinity. I've met people who were assholes that were men and women.
Yep.
And I, by the way, have had in my life, whenever I've needed my male business partner to communicate a point and get something done, if I'm finding that there's just I'm inefficient for whatever reason, it's equally with women and men. In fact, over the course of time, female employees that we have had listen to me less than they listen to him.
Yeah, well,
women are just as guilty, in other words, in my experience.
Oh no, they're horrible.
And we don't stand together.
No,
we don't have each other's back.
I tell people that all the time. I mean, my white male privilege is not thinking white males are going to support me. It's like people go, Bernie Sanders, guy's retarded. I don't back him because he's white and heterosexual and 6 foot tall. You know what I mean? He's an idiot. I hate Gavin Newsom. The black privilege, the white privilege is if there's some equivalent white male version of George Floyd, I just go, I'm not supporting that guy. He's a criminal. He's a drug addict. I don't know. Don't wrestle with the cops next time, Chet, and you won't die. That's what I would say, because I don't care. I don't have to take to the streets. I don't have to do anything. I don't know that guys. I don't have to defend the kid who stabbed the kid in the bleachers. It's like, hey, don't bring a knife to school. I don't care. There's, Mangione is a white guy. Carolla, Mangione. Paisan? No. Give him the chair. Don't shoot people in the back. I don't care.
Oh my God.
That's my privilege. It's a real privilege.
Okay.
If you're going to waste your time going, oh, I'm black, so I got to watch Tyler Perry movies and Tyler Perry sucks, then you've just wasted money on a movie. I don't have to do that. So there's some sort of invisible thing. Like I see it with comedy all the time. Like women comedians will go, God, those other female comedians were so bitchy to me and we should be supporting each other. And I'm like, they're not supporting anybody but themselves. They don't like you. Get over it. I don't do that. I don't go like Bill Burr should be supporting me. You know what I mean? I go, I don't expect him to support me. He doesn't expect me to support him. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do expect it, though. You know what? I'm guilty of that.
Women are. They do it to me all the time. It's like,
guilty
hey,
of-
a woman did this. I was like, first off,
I'm
they
guilty
all
of
hate each other.
expecting
They're all
women to
bitchy, and get over it.
It's
Move on.
true. But I will say this. In this new foray of getting to ask questions that are outside of my wheelhouse, any woman that I have met in this space has been amazing. Megyn Kelly has been amazing. Candace Owens has been amazing. Jessica Carolla. They have been amazing and gracious and shown up and answered questions, and I am grateful for that. But historically, throughout my career in fitness or in the brief time that I worked in Hollywood, this little window between being a trainer and then being a trainer again, everybody in Hollywood sucked and the women were vicious. And everybody in fitness sucked and the women were vicious.
Yeah.
So like I want to create a little a caveat for the women who've been amazing. But I think as women, you find that, I guess, I haven't experienced the toxic masculinity. I have experienced the knife in the back from the female coworker, which is unfortunate.
Well, I mean, look, so what we did is we kind of decided that men and toxic men and masculine men and heterosexual men were sort of the cause of a lot of problems we've had. They traditionally fight the wars and assassinate the presidents, and they get into bar fights, and they do the stuff that we don't want. And so there used to be a lot of talk, like, look, if there were female presidents, then there would never be wars, and like that kind of stuff, which we all
know is not true. I mean,
and there'd be more wars. But the point is this. We did, and we also, what men did was like unsophisticated, and it was not evolved, like we needed men in the caveman days to bonk them over the head and fight off the saber-toothed tiger or whatever it is. And now we don't really need that, we're not letting our fists do the talking for us and settling our problems. So we decided that this kind of masculinity was the cause of a lot of problems and vestigial, like unnecessary, like we didn't need it. And then also what happened, frankly, is a lot of women went into the teaching profession, and it became, a majority younger female teaching, K through whatever, and first grade and second grade. Young boys, all they want to do is wrestle with one another. They want rough play. And all male mammals, monkeys and rats, they all do it. They all wrestle, essentially. That's what we do. And so now you're in recess, and guys are getting into it, and they're like, whoa, no. And the guy's running, and then just no running in the hall. And then you have these games like dodgeball, and like, we're not doing dodgeball anymore. It's like, it's too aggressive. Football, we're not doing we're not keeping score. We're not making contact. You're basically saying all the stuff 10-year-old boys want to do, we're going to weed it out of the system because it's a bunch of women with college degrees that are in charge of the menu. It's like if they were all vegan, you think there'd be more pot roast on the menu? No, they're in charge of the menu. So they got rid of it all, and now all the guys are on Ritalin because they have ADHD. It's like they're not hyperactive. They're 11-year-old boys. I was a young boy, and I would literally just like stare out of the classroom window going, I could get my hands on a football or basketball. Like that bell would ring. It was like, come on, PE, let's go. Let's get teams. Let's do this. Like it's in your DNA.
Sebastian Younger said something very similar to me about being a man and wanting to see what you're capable of and what you would do if you had to go to war. And I thought, God, man, I wonder what I would do, but I certainly don't want to go. I don't want to find out, and I don't know that I would be the hero that people like yourself have been in these positions. In fact, I think I probably wouldn't. But we, for some reason, have shamed boys into thinking, and I hate to make these generalizations, but I see it with my son and his friends and what they're resonating with. What do you think, though, if I was to go with toxic masculinity on a personal level? I don't like the Tate brothers. Whether they did or they didn't do whatever the hell they've been accused of, isn't even relevant to me with regard to my dislike for the way their rhetoric. They to me, us emasculating men so much has given rise to that kind of rhetoric. And I don't like them. Do you think I'm overreacting? I'm being too sensitive?
I hear about the Tate brothers all the time, and I really don't know anything about them, and I've never seen anything they've ever done, and I hear sort of secondhand tidbit stuff. And I don't see...
It's tough. It's brutal.
I am very masculine in the sense that I came up playing football, which is very contacty. Yeah. For a million years I played. And then I moved into boxing, and then I moved into construction, and I like race cars and build houses. And I do totally that kind of stuff. Wow. And so I am very masculine that way, but I drive a Mazda SUV because I have race cars that I can race, but I don't need the Lamborghini on the street getting tickets or keyed or whatever. I go to the Home Depot. I want to just park at the Home Depot in my Mazda family truckster, and if it gets dinged in the parking lot with a shopping cart, I don't care. So now I'm not trying to be grandiose, but what I'm saying is I have all the qualities of a masculine person, but I don't have any of the trappings of it. I don't have any tattoos. I don't have any guns. I don't have street cars. I have race cars.
I have tattoos and guns.
But I do have tons of tools. I got tons of tools.
Apparently I have your drill. So,
wow.
Oh my God.
My Milwaukee.
I actually went home and looked for that, by the way. I was like, am I crazy? Do you have this
18.6
guy's drill?
with the keyless chuck.
What the hell?
And the battery and the charger and the case it came in. You got the whole thing. No, I was screwing with you. But I have 15 of every tool, and I know how to use every tool. And so I realized that I got my rocks off boxing or building or driving a race car or rebuilding an engine for a car or doing a bunch of that stuff. And so the trappings and the accoutrements I never really cared about, like the tattoos and the tough guy and the stuff and all that. I was always like, I work with all these guys building houses or at the racetrack or whatever it is. I employed guys at my shop. That's what we did. They don't have any of the trappings of it either. They're sort of like MMA guys that are very low key at the bar. You know what I mean? Like they know they can handle themselves, but they don't have to get in someone's face and wear it that way.
Yeah.
And so these guys are a caricature of masculinity. And the reality is they wouldn't probably know how to change the spare tire on their Lamborghini, you know, or build a house or
I don't think so.
Drive that Lamborghini
Yes,
at
true.
a competitive speed, you know, on a closed course, you know. And so these are cartoon characters of guys.
Yeah.
But the real masculine guys, they're kind of low key.
The problem is that the more you push from a cultural perspective to emasculate men, the more these guys rise. And young boys tend to be like, oh, you know, you're going to tell me not to play with the football or not to rough and tumble. Then some of them can lean in that direction. And that's the balance that I feel like some of the progressivism has a flip side to it. And it turns out like that. And it isn't good. These are not men that respect women or that are quietly confident. It's quite the opposite. And that's, but I'm grateful. Then again, as a mom, I'm grateful every single day to have people like yourself or people like Rogan or who are out there just being good examples of what I would imagine it would mean to be a healthy and happy man in our society. But if something could change for men right now, what do you think that would need to be? Like as a mom of a boy, what would I hope would change for him culturally right now?
Well, you know, they're in danger of doing this. They're basically the same people are essentially going to start a race war if they keep going on black is beautiful and white males are, they're going to create a new clan of guys who don't want to be marginalized for the color of their skin. And it's going to bubble back and get them, which is what they're doing essentially with race, what they do with male, toxicity and all that kind of stuff. For me, like practically, I was down on the touring my vlog on the Malibu sites and been sort of gotten a backstage look at the Palisades and at the cleanup and everything. And with a construction background, I understand what it is they're doing when they're doing it. And there are thousands of guys like driving dump trucks, working excavators, working equipment, and they're getting good money for it. Like they're getting like prevailing wage in Los Angeles means like when I used to do earthquake rehab for the city, we got prevailing wage, which is what the city says. This is what you have to pay your employees. For the laborers, they're getting $60 an hour. For the guys driving the backhoes and stuff, they're getting like $90 an hour. Okay. So there's plenty of blue collar jobs that we're going to need that AI is not going to replace. Yeah. And these guys, especially in the inner city, because I toured this entire place, all the Palisades, all of Malibu. And I literally saw thousands of truck drivers, equipment operators, did not see one black face, not one African-American in that entire group, not one. You can go there. You can watch the film. I filmed it all. You find me the young black man who's working that excavator, which they could totally do with 6 months of training or a year apprenticeships or whatever it is. But we decided that we had to bring music back to the schools and get rid of shop class, essentially. This is all part of the feminization thing I'm talking about. He doesn't need to know how to play an oboe. He needs a trade. And not everyone is going to college. Yeah, so of course. Just understand that these kids that are in the inner city, they're talking about the cycles of poverty or violence, they could all be working in Malibu making a lot of money, and they would have a skill and they would have pride and dignity. It's all doable. Somebody's got to reach out to these people. Some politician's got to say something. Somebody besides, Mike Rowe has to start thinking about putting these institutions in place where these young men who are not college material. I was not college material. Neither were my friends. That's why I'm a carpenter, because I wasn't college material.
I do lunges.
But we dug ditches on a construction site because we didn't have any training. We had to enter at the bottom floor and work as laborers. But if somebody would wake up and go, I don't want these kids falling by the wayside. I don't want them joining gangs. I don't want them it was like, they do that thing where it's like, McDonald's has to pay a living wage. I don't want them working at McDonald's. I want them with a skill that they could easily start learning when they were 15 or 16. By the time they got out of high school, they could be in an apprentice program. And like I said, these guys aren't paying $14, $17 an hour. These guys are paying $40, $50, $80. These guys are making big money. Yeah. But they have a skill. But it's very teachable. And you don't need 4 years of college for it. And it doesn't cost that much. And we're going to need these people. I mean, how many people it's going to take to rebuild the Palisades in Malibu and Altadena? You know how many framing crews we're going to need? Like residential framers, guys who can put up shear wall and 2x4s and glue lamb beams and paralams. A little steel every once in a while off the paralam won't make the span. But we're going to need tons of these guys. They don't have any skill. No one has any training.
What? Okay, so going back to my politician punch list, you bring up, this is exactly what I want to know from you. Who's the politician that's going to do it? Who's the one that's worth the fuck? Honestly, that's I don't know. Question. I mean, who's the one that actually cares?
But that's
do you see anyone on either side? I honestly
no. I mean,
who cares? And then anybody I ask, like yourself, if I'll sit down with a person like yourself and you're like, would you run? You guys all say no. You all say no.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you run?
Oh, I think, and it's come up a time or two, and I'll flirt with it every once in a while in the recesses of my mind. Honestly, for me, it would be about putting people in my orbit in horrible positions where they had, my kids are going to have to hear everything. My girlfriend's going to have to hear everything. It's going to be full, it'd be full character assassination. I don't really care for myself that much because I don't, but I'm wired a different way. Other people hate it. Yeah. In your orbit, my daughter would have to hear.
No, by the time you're done, you'll
blah.
also eat dogs and be a rapist and a racist and an ableist and a transphobe.
Yeah, right.
And a misogynist.
Right. So yes, there would be that.
Yeah. And that's so unfortunate though, because that's the whole point of doing it.
I know.
Is to intimidate the good guys out of getting stuff done. That's why they do it.
Yes.
It's all a psyop. It's insane. And you guys all say the same thing. It's like, you know what you're doing. You know what it would take. You have a vision. You have the character. You're not dependent on being paid off by these big corporations. And you guys are like, that's a filthy business. Unfortunate.
I never get, and I would, like if Maxine Waters, whose constituency is sort of inner city folk, if she gave one speech where she just went, we're going to need a whole bunch of people rebuilding all these places, and it's going to take 10 years. I mean, some 15-year-old kid who's flailing now may be in a framing crew when he's 18 working in the Palisades and making good money. If I heard her say one thing like that, I'd go, I agree with her 100%, but I never do.
No.
I never hear anything other than grievance.
Oh, yeah, or everybody's a victim.
Right.
Yeah, and
right.
But I find that to be on purpose. In large part. It's
I think it is.
Yeah, if you disempower someone, they're like, oh, well, there's nothing I can do. So then they're angry and they're a victim of everything. And it creates this dissension and nobody's really paying attention to the actual bad things that are going on because they're too busy feeling sorry for themselves.
I get it. For me, it seems a lot more pragmatic. It could be a lot more pragmatic. Like we could just figure out who's filling the prisons and who's doing the graffiti and who's doing the street crime and who's doing all the stuff we don't want, who's homeless, who are these people, and then go, we need to get those people training. Right. They need a skill. They need a skill, and it's not going to be college, and it's not going to be data entry. And what they also don't really understand is there's a lot of dudes, and I was one of them, and my friends were one of them. They can't work in an office environment. They can't put on a V-neck sweater with a tie under it and show up. They can't do it. Yeah. And they couldn't do it if there was some hot secretary walking down the hall, they'd slap them on the ass and tell them they were looking good. Like they cannot function. And by the way, if their supervisor was dressing them down, they might take a swing at them. Like these are dudes, you know what I mean? They need to be in jeans, wearing boots, outside working.
Yeah, I get it.
We're not all indoor cats. These guys are like feral cats. They want to be out. They want to go out. They want to crank up the radio. They want to take their shirts off, and they want to work.
I wish you would run. Okay, here's my bullet list real quick. Who's the biggest coward in politics?
Coward. I would say Obama because he knows better and he still hustles. He still does the hustle, and that's the sad part.
Right.
Yeah,
it just came like he knew that Kamala couldn't win. Like he knew. Yeah, that's a good one. All right. This one sort of, who's the one politician that seems like a real human being? And I sort of asked that, and you had nothing.
No, I think I know
you had nothing, Adam.
Some of these guys I've talked to, like Jim Jordan and guys like that, are kind of normal guys. They're out there. They're not too many Democrats, but there's a handful. I mean, by the way, I'm not a historical. I'm a comedian who
Yeah, sure.
Builds houses.
You know, and you know what? Rogan's a comedian and Andrew Schulz is a comedian. Bill Maher's a comedian. So there's obviously something about comedians being able to see something in society, call it out, and subsequently know how to fix it. I don't know what that theme is, but you guys are all comedians. So
well,
I mean,
you have to see into the future a little as a comedian. You have to see a little ahead of things a little bit. I mean, I wrote a book 16 years ago called "In 50 Years We'll All Be Chicks," and I'm not. I don't want to be grandiose, but when you write a book, as you know, there comes a point where you go, we got to title the book. And the book's full of essays and comedic thoughts and observations and stuff like that. And so when they come to me, they go, we got to name a book. And I'm like, I don't know, some wordplay on my name or some thoughts or some comic something. And at some point I just went, in 50 years we'll all be chicks. and it just came out of my mouth. And that was...
oh my God.
16 years ago, but it turned out to be true, or at least turn out where we were heading.
Yeah.
And
you called Gavin Newsom a decade ago.
I knew something was like, I was living in this zeitgeist 16 years ago before everyone was transitioning and everyone was talking about men and women's sports and all. But I was feeling like something and no one was really talking about it. And that was the title of my first book. And it could have been, it's not even a particularly funny name. It's not, I mean, I'm a comedian. Like, I'm like, it's not that funny or interesting, or it's not really to do with the contents of the book. Like, why would I name it that? But I named it that because something was going on that I was feeling.
If you had to write the next book, or maybe you are, looking 10 more years into the future, what's the title?
Safe Spaces and Octagons. I think the blue cities are just going to turn into safe spaces and just completely come undone. And then there's going to be, Texas and Florida and Tennessee, and they're going to turn into octagons. So it's like the more they try to force you into a Prius, half the society drives the Prius and the other half of society buys a Jeep and puts a gun rack on it and goes, I'm not doing what you want me to do. And so you're seeing us segregate now into people going, I'm going to Texas, I'm buying a Jeep, and I'm buying a gun, and I'm buying some land, and I'm going to go do what I want to do, And the other half are buying the electric car and moving into this city. And so we're going to segregate, and then at some point the blue cities are going to come undone, and they're going to have to turn to the octagons to bail them out.
They are, though. And then the octagons are like, hey, don't vote here, which is totally understandable. And that's something that I can't wrap my head around. When I moved to Miami, Alex Rodriguez was like, I went to go visit him. He's like, so great to see you. Welcome to Miami, blah, blah, blah. Don't vote here. And I was like, Alex, I didn't move because I think it's working in California.
Right.
But a lot of people who do move out of here go to the octagon and then vote to turn it into a safe space.
Right.
Last question. What is that? What is that? You're running from what you created only to create it somewhere else.
I'm going to write, the title of my next book is going to be All Roads Lead to Narcissism. And and with the first chapter be, I never thought adults would be this stupid. Not when I was a kid. I did not think we would end up like this. They do what they do with COVID. They just can't admit they were wrong. They just can't. They were wrong. You voted for the wrong guy. You backed the wrong policies. You ruined your state. Just admit it. So it's not, they like the policies better in Florida and they like the policies better, but they have to admit they were wrong. And there's a lot of that with COVID where you just go, just admit you're wrong about the mask thing. You're wrong about social distancing. You're wrong about the vaccine. You're wrong. And they're like, dead silence.
Came from a lab.
Silence on all of it, right?
Yes.
And it's like, because you're going to have to find a mirror and you're going to have to see your own reflection and go, that's a wrong guy looking back at me. But the real reason people don't want to do it is because what are they going to be wrong about next if they admit this?
I see.
That they were wrong about this time.
Yes. Every question I ask you leads me to another question, and I know I promised you an hour, but I could literally talk to you forever if I could just do one more because you opened the door. One more, and then I swear to God you can go. So what do you think they're going to be wrong about next? That we'll know about. That will be like, that will be a COVID, aha, I told you. I was right.
Well, let's see. I think the whole Doge thing is going to lead to a lot of stuff about a lot of these NGOs and these programs and these whatever, because 24 billion worth of homeless money in Los Angeles in the last several years, and California, I should say, more homeless than we started with the 24 billion. I'm not seeing a lot of apartments or complexes or facilities.
Tiny homes.
24 billion has to go somewhere.
Right.
And somebody's got some of that money, and then there'll be some, sort of Joe Biden, Hunter Biden kind of political connection-y too. But a lot of that, I think a lot of that's going to come out, along with a lot of the sort of CIA, FBI stuff. And, we know the 51 intelligence experts that said, had the trappings of Russian or makings of Russian collusion or whatever.
Yep.
There's going to be a lot
of
that. That's what I think.
Obvious question, but for the listeners, where do they get more? Where can we get the books and the podcast and all things Adam?
Yeah.
And where are the tours and where can they see you in person?
Well, you can go to adamcarolla.com, and I do play theaters and clubs and stuff around the country, and I do stand up. You can listen to my podcast for free, and you can watch the vlogs for free, and go to the YouTube page and all that. But it's all there.
Thank you so much, Adam. You're brilliant. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Jillian.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And make sure to let me know what guests you want to see on in the future.